Hello, everyone. We're going to begin the Collaborative Assessment Alliance webinar. First and foremost, we would like to thank everyone who's joining us today and remind you that this is a recorded session. My name is Faraz Shushman, and before we begin, I'll briefly go over some of the technical logistics and scheduling outlined for this webinar. This session is set to be an hour in duration. We have left the final 20 minutes of the webinar for question and answer period, so please write down any questions that you may have for our presenters. You can write it down or post it in the comment box that you'll find on the right-hand side of your screen, or if it's in full screen mode, you will see it on the top section of your screen. A drop-down will appear and it says chat, so you can post your questions there. I will remind you that your audio will be disabled for the length of this webinar until the question and answer period, which I will detail later in this session. Now, I'd like to pass over the mic to Cindy Klapperisch to introduce our speakers.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Collaborative Assessment Alliance webinar. My name is Cindy Klapperisch, and I'll be the host for this webinar. I'd like to start by thanking you for your interest in taking time to attend this webinar in the exciting area of collaborative assessment. This is our June webinar, and it's the latest in a series of webinars covering a range of topics from PISA 2015 to new thinking in collaborative assessment test development. Today we'll be focusing on a very practical topic of what's the problem, a Cambridge guide to developing, managing, and assessing collaborative math problem solving in the primary classroom. We have with us today Claudia Bickford-Smith and Janet Reese from Cambridge University Press. Before that, I'd like to introduce you to the Collaborative Assessment Alliance. The Collaborative Assessment Alliance is a global membership alliance created to tackle the challenge to innovate and transform digital assessment to inform teaching and learning that enables all students to develop deep learning skills for success in work and life. I want to acknowledge our partners, Cambridge University Press, Collaborative Impact, EPS, Intel, Janison, Microsoft, and Promethean. To provide a top-level summary of what it is and what it does, it is a global alliance made up of a number of local member alliances. For each of these alliances is focused on the creation of collaborative assessment tasks to be used with our students in measuring 21st century skills and informing teaching and learning. Alliance members learn from creating tasks as well as formal learning support and networking with other alliance members. Each local alliance is supported in the design, creation, testing, and deployment of a number of collaborative assessment tasks. Through this process, they will gain not only new collaborative assessment tasks, but they will also gain the knowledge and skills in how they can design and create their own tasks. In this way, the Alliance will build capacity through supported design and creation of collaborative assessment tasks, knowledge sharing activities, and working as part of a global alliance where members will be encouraged to learn from each other. And Alliance members will be supported by people involved in the international projects such as ATC 21S, ensuring the learning is extended through Alliance members. We organize the Alliance as a multi-stakeholder partnership, meaning all partners are working together to help each other to share their work. I'd now like to introduce you to our two presenters for today, Claudia Bickford-Smith, the Director of the International Education Business at Cambridge University Press, and Janet Reese, an educator and author with Cambridge University Press. I'll turn it over to our speakers.
Hello, everybody. I'm Claudia Bickford-Smith from Cambridge University Press, as Cindy's kindly introduced me. Today, we're going to talk to you about a project that we set up 18 months ago with the Faculty of Maths at the University of Cambridge and our cousins, the Cambridge International Examinations, called Cambridge Primary Maths. And Janet Reese is one of the key lead authors in this program. It's a 6-level course, and we're going to be concentrating in on, I think, on the 6 to 8-year-old level. And really what we want to illustrate to you is what Cambridge is doing in moving maths away from the old chalk and talk and drill method to the assessment for learning way of approaching teaching maths. So more of the deep learning, much more of the problem solving and critical thinking. And all of this hinges on collaborative learning and group work. At the moment, what you'll see is what I would call a flat presentation, so what is in our printed material. But we are moving on to frequent testing, formative testing online, which is going to have smaller milestones built in and within each of the year groups. And these milestones will be diagnostic, mainly to identify remedial action that needs to be taken. There'll be animated virtual experiments and bespoke enriched learning objects. All of this is being created as a pilot right now for demos and training with our focus groups in schools across Asia and the Middle East mainly, and we'll be launching to the market between March next year and September next year in phase 1. But really, for the purposes of today, what Janet is going to talk to you about is some real live examples of, I think, coming from the experience we've had in teacher training across the world, what is best practice. So over to Janet.
Hello everyone, nice to talk to you. What I'd like to do is to talk about the academic side of assessment plus the practical, so we can have a look and see what happens in the classrooms. Now, we have to show teachers that there are benefits for them for formative assessment. A lot of them are used to summative, which will assess knowledge. What we're trying to do is to get them to look at the way children work, the processes, the thinking that goes on, and that doesn't always show with a summative test. So a lot of my work across the world is getting teachers to become aware of how they can use this formative assessment in the classroom. Everybody agrees that teachers really should know what children can already do, what they already know, because otherwise the next lesson you teach may be a waste of your time and their time, either because they don't know it or they do know it and they're bored. So what we're looking at are different ways of looking at formative assessment. So that could be observation, could be questioning, giving positive feedback. Always I emphasize the positive feedback. Children know what they can't do. We don't need to tell them that. What we need to tell them is, this is what you can do now, this is what I want you to be able to do, and this is how you're going to get from here to there. They need to know that. So teachers need to start the lesson sharing what they want the children to learn in that lesson, or maybe a series of lessons. Share that, otherwise they don't know when they've learned it. So that's the major thing. And also, if you notice something going on in the classroom or you hear something, then you can make, as the teacher, little modifications to your planning, or different resources tomorrow, or maybe different groupings. Our job is to allow children to make progress in their learning, and so anything we can do to make that happen has to be good. Now, as well as the teachers needing to know the benefits, we also need to know the students to know. So students are kept up to date in their progress, however big or small that progress is. So it works with the child who's working at very low levels, as well as the child that is completely the other end of the spectrum, which is very high level. Every child needs some sort of challenge, and it might be a tiny step, or it may be a huge leap, but the teacher needs to get that sorted. We want children to be motivated in their learning, and if they know what they can do to improve, that will happen. And we know that because of the research that's already been done. We're trying to get students to take responsibility for their own learning. Never, I say to teachers, never, ever tell children the answer. Never. Because if you do, they will sit back and they will wait for you to tell them. I don't mean let them struggle. What I mean is ask questions. Ask them questions to lead them to the answer. Now, that might be just one question for some students. It might be a step-by-step, tiny steps for others. But allowing them to find their own answers will obviously give them this sense of achievement. We want them to become aware of self-assessment. What do you think would help you to do this? What would you like to use tomorrow that we didn't have today? Who would you like to work with tomorrow sometimes best friends working together is not good because they won't point out to each other where things could be improved. But certainly children who don't like each other shouldn't work together either. And then we want them to develop lifelong skills such as self-evaluation, self-assessment, and setting their own goals. Questioning is absolutely crucial to formative assessment, but there are different types of questions, and what I try to encourage teachers to do is to use all of these, not in the same lesson, but over a period of time. So your very young ones, for instance, start young by saying, now how do you know that? Are you sure? If you keep are you sure until the students are 8 or 9 or 10 years old, they will think they've gone wrong because you're questioning them. Start very young. Start in nursery, starting in kindergarten. As slightly older children, give me proof of that. What proof, what evidence do you have for that? Change the language according to the age and the ability of the children. What about clarification? I didn't quite understand what you said there. Can you tell me that in a different way? Show me. Give me an example of that. Tessellate. What does that mean? Then linking and extending. This is what you have learnt. I want you to extend that into the next activity or the next lesson. Is there a connection between what you've just told me and what another child said earlier? What is the connection there? What about what we explored yesterday? Can you make a link to that? The classic one here is teaching ratio, proportion, fractions, decimals. They should all be taught together. Fraction, ratio, percentage, proportion, decimals, they all have a link. But quite often children are taught one thing and then the next and then the next without being shown or being able to discover these links. Explanation is another one. How do you know that? How could you explain that to another child? What if you were working with younger children? How would you tell a younger child what you've just done? And then the hypothetical. Yes, this worked with even numbers, but what do you think would happen if, and that could be if it was odd numbers, if it was square numbers, prime numbers? What do you think would happen? If you say to a child, or an adult comes back, if you say, what do you think, they cannot be wrong if it's what they think. It's the skill of the teacher to take what they think and use that for the next bit of teaching. So what do you think 3 plus 2 is? If you answer me 6, you're wrong. But because you're young, I don't say that. What I should say is, show me how you did that. Because only then will I see where the thinking is going a little bit awry. And then cause and effect. What would happen if we did a 4-digit number or a 5-digit number? And then at the end of the lesson, or at the end of the series of lessons, now, what do we still need to find out? So how could we do that? So a whole range of question strategies. And that also links beautifully with problem solving. Now, problem solving really is the cornerstone of school maths. If children know their tables, that's really good. It will be really useful later on. But there is no point in being able to chart your tables if you don't know what to do with that information. So we need to get these children working with what they know in a practical problem-solving way in order, perhaps, to consolidate that learning or to lead them to the next bit. I want children to solve problems, and I want them to talk to each other. I want them to think about what they're doing. It doesn't matter if it goes wrong. What's wrong is not being able to do something about it. And that's the teacher and the child. Unless children can solve problems, all their knowledge is really of little use. It's like children coming to school and they can count to 10, but they can't pick up 2 beads. It's useful to count to 10, but you have to take it that step further and know what to do with it. So I'd like you to try an activity. I'd like you to write any 3-digit number. And then I would like you to reverse it and then take the smaller number from the larger number. Now, I will guarantee that if you tell me the first digit of your number, I can tell you what your number is. I will absolutely guarantee that. How can I do that? So if I'm doing this with students, they will do steps 1, 2, 3, and 4, and they'll be amazed that I can tell their answer. Every student in the room, I'll be able to tell their answer. But then my follow-up question to get them thinking and to sort this out and to really get into the maths is, how can I do that? How did I manage to do that every time? Talk to your partner. Talk in the group. See what you can find out. Does this always happen? Whatever the 3-digit number is, will it always happen? Why? And the next step is, what about a 4 or 5-digit number? Do you think that would work? Why? If it does, tell me why. If it doesn't, tell me why not. Now, I'm looking for a good problem solver. I'm looking for children who want to try and who will keep trying. If a child is going through school getting things wrong, why will they want to keep trying? They just want to get it over with as quickly as possible, really. So try a lot of the what do you think. You can't be wrong. I want them to find the different strategies for solving problems. Make a list, draw a picture, construct a graph or a chart. Lots of different ways. And of course, lots of problems can be solved in more than one way. There is no one right way. And once I've handed over the problem to the children, that becomes their problem, not mine. So for formative assessment, I'll be looking at the processes they go through in order to solve that problem. There's also, within problem solving, the advantage that everybody can have the same problem, but they may come up with different answers. As long as they can explain why that's happened, that's fine. For instance, I may say, I think that within your groups, the person with the longest legs can jump the furthest. What do you think? How could you find out? And then they will go off in their groups to find out. And some groups may say, yes, we agree, and some groups will say no. How can that happen? How can there be a yes and a no answer to the same problem? And of course, children will back it up with their evidence and their proof. And that may be a picture, a graph, a chart, a poster, could be anything, piece of writing. But that's the communication strand within problem solving. So within group work, we're looking at the benefits and limitations of different types of groups. Friendship groups, children will be very secure. Ability groups, that will be very good if you want to take one ability group a step higher. But what happens if you always work in ability groups? The lower ability children never get to see or hear higher level maths because they're always working with children of the same level. How about flexible grouping? Sometimes mixing up the abilities. Give everybody in the group a role to play. Structured. That's a bit tricky sometimes. Random. That's what I would call my flexible. Get children working with other levels of ability. Sometimes single-sex grouping is appropriate. Socially, it's more comfortable for some children. Pair. Working in pairs, especially if you use the think, pair, share strategy, where you're thinking, you talk to your partner, and then you talk to the rest of the group, works quite well. It's easily accommodated into the classroom setup, however many children you have. Small group 3 to 4, and I would recommend no more than 4 for the younger children. And larger groups, 6 or more, needs really to be the older children. But be careful with the groupings, because with a group of 6 or more, some children may opt out. Flexible grouping. This is a group of teachers, and they had a task to build a chair. Build a chair out of giant Lego or a queen, and they had to work in groups of 4 or 5 to work out how they would do that, including there were rules about colours. In the classroom, these children were almost 6, so they just come within the children we're talking about today. And this was based on a story called My Cat Likes to Hide in Boxes. And there was a whole collection of cats and boxes, and then the children had to make their own box. And these 2 girls weren't working as a group, they were working side by side. And that happens quite often with the younger ones, but they're watching to see what each other was doing. Now your 6s, 7s are working together. There's a big difference between working in a group and working as a group. In a group, there are 6 children around a table doing their own thing. What I want to see is working as a group, where they talk and they share ideas. This is just some proof, evidence, that your cat fitted in the box that you made. That was the little girl there, and I don't know if you can see, but on the tail of the cat is some glue. One of the rules was that if I tipped the box, your cat wouldn't fall out. So to overcome that problem, they actually glued the cat into the box. It didn't fall out now. Same child, this is all the same class, so a vast range of what they did. And this little boy sat on his own. He was slightly on the autistic spectrum, but he looked to see what the others were doing, and he cut when they cut, and he stuck when they stuck, and then that was his cat. And there was a little flap at the front with some sellotape, and that was the way the cat got in. And when we were talking about this afterwards, it was evident that in the outcome of this, some children needed more work, but because the cats fitted in the boxes, which was the objective, every child had succeeded. Whatever their box looked like, they had succeeded. So within the Cambridge Primary, in the learner books, there are lots of activities where children work together as a group. And there are lots of what do you think type questions. So what's the point of all of this? Well, maths really is synonymous with solving problems, word problems, patterns. Learning to solve problems is the principal reason for studying maths, and it allows children to think. Remember, don't give answers. This is one for the grade 1 children in the new primary, and all they have is a footprint coming up to the classroom door or the classroom window, a series of footprints, and a letter comes and says, "Children, I came to play with you today, but you've gone home. I'd like to come back and play. Do you think I fit through your door?" And using the information they had to find out as close as possible how tall the giant was, therefore be able to answer the question, would I fit through your door? This is a page from the teacher's manual that actually starts that lesson off. So we're looking at solving problems and a whole list of things that will help develop mathematical thinking. Grade 2, they're looking at dance directions. They're making up music for their dance. We're looking at direction, position, and movement, and they're working as a group of 4. The next one follows on from that lesson, and there is the teacher's page. Now, progression within problem solving is very difficult, so we have to look at the strands within problem solving. And one of the strands is communicating, and that can be done in any way that is right for that child at that time, or that group. And there are about 10 steps going from the very simple discuss work, use mathematical language and represent it, to examine critically, improve and justify, explaining. Another strand is reasoning, logic and proof. And step 1 for the first rung of the ladder is explain why an answer is correct, and then right through to step 10. 5 different types of problems. Word problems, they are the most common. I'm either going to write one for you to read, or I'm going to say one out loud. Logic problems gets children thinking. Diagram problems, finding all possibilities, and finding rules and describing patterns. Now, certainly within 2 weeks' worth in a school, I would want to see all of those done. not all in the same lesson, although some will naturally go together. So you could have a word problem that includes logic, for instance. But children should have experience of all of those types of problems. So we need to give opportunities for children to communicate with each other. We need to use existing vocabulary, plus bringing in new vocabulary. Mathematics vocabulary is very, very difficult for some children because the word that I'm asking them to use has other meanings in English. So something like kite, I'm thinking of the mathematical shape, but it could also be a bird, or it could be something on the end of this piece of string that flies in the air. There are all sorts of problems with vocabulary, but we need to be really, really precise. And even the young children, as long as you back it up with the visual picture or the image or the actual object, young children won't have problems with words as long as you back it up. Now, older children may still need that, but that's what we do. We want them to practice and consolidate mathematical skills and knowledge. So working as groups, there's one from the Cambridge Primary, how long, how high. And if you look, it uses lots of questions at the end. There is no finite answer. And this is what I'd like to leave you with. It shouldn't only be taught because it's useful. What I would love is for when children leave the room, they want to come back in and do maths again. It should be a source of delight and wonder for everybody, and I'm including teachers here. It should get children excited about it. And what I want is for children to see the creativity of mathematics, not only in school. Let's have a look around our classrooms, let's have a look outside. Let's have a look in the real world. And I will absolutely guarantee that where you are sitting now, if you look around, you will find absolutely nothing that doesn't have something to do with mathematics. You can't get away from it. It's there all the time. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that presentation. It was very informative and very interesting. So once again, I want to thank Claudia and Janet for this great webinar. We're now going to be entering our Q&A session. So this is a really great opportunity to ask questions, and often the best part of these webinars. So if you have a question, please indicate so by typing your question in the comment box. And so we're going to go chronologically, and Claudia and Jen will answer those questions as they come. So please make sure you ask those questions. We have our first question from Greg. So Greg asks, how is Cambridge moving to shift their approach to digital formative collaborative assessment, i.e. combining mathematics, problem solving, and collaboration captured in digital means?
Unfortunately, we don't have my more technically qualified colleagues here to answer the technical aspects of that, Greg, but what Janet has just described is the design process for our online program, which will and as long as I'm waving a magic wand here, but we will have our test and assessment combined with what we call enriched media in an online program that will deliver the 6th-level course. And so what our authors have been asked to do, who've written what I would call the SAT content, is to identify where in the process of building the scope and sequence which relates to teaching collaborative practices, group work and problem solving, we need to intervene with digital test and assessment items, and we've commissioned authors to write item bank questions, which we have trained our authors to write into a template, and that will then deliver not entirely live adaptive learning, because that will be our next phase, phase 2, but certainly enough input for learners to be able to assess their own progress and teachers to be able to benchmark individual progress within the classroom against the benchmark for the year group and against the curriculum needs, but then also across the classroom and perhaps across the school. And, you know, ultimately you could get to a situation where across a whole cluster of schools there could be benchmarking exercise. So that is very much driven by the partner that we're working with, who's providing the technology to drive that. Our strength is in identifying practicing teachers who are able to deliver that content, and Janet is the classic example. But what we also have is the Faculty of Maths at the university, which has delivered a whole lot of open educational resources, which I actually urge you to have a look at. And I think we need to post that web link actually after the presentation, Cindy, so that people can refer to what the university has been doing already across 12 years worth of problem solving, online problem solving. And that might be another session altogether where we can bring our colleagues in to talk to that. We see this as pushing the boundaries quite considerably, because in the markets we're working with teachers who perhaps aren't all that comfortable with moving away from a very traditional way of teaching maths. And so this is quite a step, I think, in the right direction towards teaching critical thinking and problem solving and moving away from the more didactic approaches. We're going to have to do an awful lot of teacher training and support, I think, once this is delivered to our schools. I hope that answers your question.
Excellent. Now we have a question from Effa. She asks, can you tell us more about assessing the individuals in the group that they are working in?
Janet will answer that question.
Okay, so I'm assuming that there is a small group of children working together as a group, but the teacher wants to focus on just one. Is that right?
So the question was, can you tell us more about assessing the individuals in the groups that they are working in? Is that what you meant, Effa? Yes.
Yes, okay. I think for the teacher, I would offer lots of different ways to see which is best. The problem with a teacher moving towards a group and sitting with them is that the dynamics of the group usually change because the teacher is there. So it's very difficult. They want to say the right thing because the teacher's there, and they look to the teacher for the answer. I think because this needs to start right from kindergarten, nursery, kindergarten, where children are very comfortable with the teacher being there, and that teacher is not going to interfere in what they're doing, then later years it won't matter if the teacher sits there. But I would go probably for silent observation first of all, to see if that's working, or questioning. Tell me what you've done already. What is it you want to find out, and how are you going to do that? What will be your next step? Just simple questions that the child can answer, and in your head make a note of those answers. I tend not to write them down because some children get a bit uncomfortable with that. Give positive feedback. I love the way you've done that. And tomorrow you could, and change the word but into an and, because if you say but, you are implying failure. If you say and, you're recognizing the child has succeeded in this, and tomorrow they can even do this. So sometimes teachers need to change their vocabulary there and ask the children about what they think. Do you think this is a bit tricky? Is this a bit hard? What could we do about that? Because you don't know what they're thinking unless you ask them. So really, to answer the question, there's a whole range of strategies, and And when you know the children or the particular child, you will know which would work best with that one. Is that okay?
Excellent. So now we have another question. Greg agrees that these are important steps and very happy with your approach and direction. What is your timing around you being able to deliver those integrated assessment / content learning support?
What is the timing? You mean when can we actually demonstrate this to you? We could have a beta launch for you to have a look at, and actually we'd really appreciate feedback from you within the group. I would say round about autumn being October, November. That would be hugely helpful to us because this is a process where we'd want to work with focus groups and iterate as we go along.
Right. Excellent. Excellent. Now we're going to continue this Q&A session. I want to once again reiterate to please post your questions. Maybe everyone can take a moment to ask one question that they have. Okay, we're going to wait another about 15 seconds. Okay, so another question. Are there specific differences in assessing mathematics to other areas?
Differences in maths to others?
To other areas.
I would say no, but then I would qualify that with, for some children and some teachers, maths has always been difficult. And it seems to be the one subject where adults have bad memories. Both teachers, parents, people in the shops, whatever, they have bad memories of their maths at school. And I don't want that to happen to the next generation and the next and the next. And when I talk to adults about that, it tends to come down to either the teacher or the teaching, possibly both. So that's what we've got to get right. That's what we've got to change. We've got to change attitudes. We've got to change the feeling that, oh, I wasn't any good at maths at school, so he probably won't be. There's no reason, there's no link for that at all. Even a child who works at a very low level can improve. Tiny bit, but there can be improvement. And the reason I am saying that is because I've worked in profound and multiple learning difficulties schools and also moderate learning difficulty schools, and I've seen it happen. And so we've got to get self-esteem going, we've got to get self-confidence going, we've got to get self-assessment going, and make maths something that you really can't keep failing at, because you don't need to. So the answer is yes, because maths is the one that tends to be the one that's disliked, and is perhaps not taught as well as it should be. But we're changing. Slowly and steadily, we're changing it. Okay?
Excellent. So now we have a question from Cindy. Have you then thoughts about how the assessment might measure attitudes and feelings?
I missed the end.
Can you rephrase that? We didn't hear that.
So the question is, have you then thoughts about how the assessment might measure attitudes and feelings?
How can assessment measure attitudes and feelings?
Yes.
Of children or adults, teachers?
Cindy, would you like to clarify which one you meant? Or let's say both.
Yeah, I would have hoped you would have said that, because one goes with the other.
Yeah.
It has to come initially from the teacher. That teacher has got to be as excited and as dynamic and as interesting as possible. Sometimes filling in a workbook of pages and pages of the same thing is not exciting. What happens is children love to see lots of ticks, and parents love to see lots of ticks. Now, my point is, if you get more than 6 ticks doing the same thing, you shouldn't be doing the rest, because it's too easy. If you get 6 crosses, you shouldn't be doing the rest, because you haven't understood. So sometimes we need to take away these types of books or these types of activities and get children actively involved in their own learning. Once the attitude of teachers change, attitudes of children will follow.
Excellent. Do you think it ever goes the other way around as well? Once the attitude of children change, the attitude of the teacher, or do you think the dependent variable is the student?
I think you need to have a very open and flexible teacher for that to happen, so that if a child comes in excited about something mathematical, the teacher needs to be able to pick that up and run with it. Otherwise, I think that would be very difficult.
Right.
May I just say that that then requires an almost revolutionary change in classroom culture. And again, in a lot of the schools we visit and work in, I think that is going to be the single biggest challenge for teachers as well in their own self-confidence. Having been to a workshop in Cape Town recently, and Janet was running this with 25 very well qualified teachers. They were absolutely, I would say, flabbergasted by some of Janet's suggestions, which was going to remove them from, not that they minded, but that they were just envisaging this from the sort of the authoritarian person, or the person, where all authority rests in the classroom, to much more of a facilitatory role. And that is very different. I think you can talk to that, Janet.
Yes, I think sometimes there is a problem with problem solving for teachers, because if you ask an open question or give the children a problem to solve, you are never quite sure what the answer will be, because it's up to the children. And I think for some teachers that's very threatening. They can't let go. It's too much in one jump to suddenly change from the way you've always taught to say, I don't know what's going to happen here, and it's threatening. And what I try and say is, it doesn't matter that you don't know. It does matter if you don't let the children find out, and then they can explain things to you. You cannot put a ceiling on children's learning just because you don't know something. You can't do that.
Right. And so that's excellent. So I guess going back to the question for a second, I mean, it's like you said, it's so crucial to measure those attitudes and feelings. Is there a process in place? I mean, how do you do that? How do you assess or measure that? Because it seems difficult.
How do you measure the change in classroom culture? To the progress?
How do you measure the assessment or assess the attitudes and feelings of the students and the teachers?
How do you measure it?
Yeah.
Okay. I think mainly just by watching. You can see if children are. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So if you're online, I mean, I think that's actually quite a challenge, isn't it? Because you can't observe, on the spot. But perhaps if one can put in a range of activities that then could just look at growing confidence. So I think the scaffolding of the activities. Janet, I think, illustrated a bit earlier on in the presentation. You move from your more simple problem solving to the much more complex. And I think in the way that you phrase your questions, you could also bring in, well, how did you feel about that? Or are you feeling, you could, in fact, that probably is advisable, build in a series of checks and balances for kids to be able to actually stand back and look, well, how did I feel about that? Am I feeling more confident? And so, I mean, the whole process of learning how to learn, which is really what we're talking about here today, becomes much more apparent to both the learners and the teachers. And I mean, this all has to be registered online somehow. Good challenge, and we'll take note of that. But I think it's all in the scaffolding and the way that you pose the questions.
Excellent. We have another question from Les Faltos. What kind of preparations and support do teachers need to use this type of assessment?
I'm guessing, and I don't have, again, we can come back to you in November when we do a beta launch with you, that we're going to have to do a lot of professional development. And so we've put aside a considerable budget for for running, Janet's looking very pleased, workshops, and which will have to be face-to-face in reality, in real-time workshops with teachers, where we're actually taking them through the technicalities and the classroom management aspect of implementing this learning strategy in their classroom. Again, it's going to require a great deal of political willpower right from the top, probably the head teachers. There's always budgetary implications because the hardware needs to be in place, and also teachers' time needs to be taken into account. They need to be taken out of the classroom to be trained. But we certainly wouldn't just dump the program on the school and expect it to run. I think it's going to be a case of long-term support and
Right.
lots of workshops.
Excellent. Are there any further questions? Okay. Okay, so seeing that there aren't any questions left, I want to once again thank you. I'm going to pass on the mic, I guess, to Cindy to offer some closing remarks.
Thank you, everybody, for coming, and a special thank you to Claudia and to Janet for being here and providing us with this information. This webinar has been recorded, so you'll be able to share it or tune back in and watch it later. We'll be sending out an email with the link to the recording, and we'll also have a link to past recordings. And so if you guys would like to learn more about the Collaborative Assessment Alliance, you can go online at CAA21.org. If you would like anybody to contact you and follow up to see how your organization can be a part of the Collaborative Assessment Alliance, please just contact us. Information is available on the website. So again, thank you, and we will talk to you guys next month.